practical question, right? So here's how you actually start a modern Njangi. First, you gather your core group, 5 to 10 people you trust completely. Then you set your terms. How much monthly? $500, 200. You agree on that together. Next, you open a joint investment account, something like a brokerage account that multiple people can manage. You automate those monthly contributions so nobody has to think about it. Then you pick your investment. S&P 500 index fund is simple and proven. And here's the key. You agree up front that nobody touches this money for at least 10 years, ideally 40. It's locked in. You might meet quarterly just to check in, celebrate the growth, and keep everyone accountable. That's it. You've built a wealth machine.
Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Noufele podcast. As usual, thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much for showing up. We really appreciate it. We hope that every episode on the channel you guys find it helpful. And then, if you don't mind, if you're here for the first time, please hit that subscribe button, subscribe and share, so that the video can reach more people and can help more people. Okay, so while growing up in Cameroon, I used to experience this concept where my family or my community that I was surrounded with get together every month, bring money, put money on the table. It was beautiful. It was based on the trust. It was based on consistency. So I watched that while I was growing up. Like my family, my community, everybody, they get together, they put money on the table, and then once your turn, you just get the part. So, but today I want to ask a different question. So, what if instead of rotating the money among each member that is taking part of the Tontine or the Njangi that we call it, what if instead of rotating that money among members, what if we invest instead in the stock market, since we are in the United States? So what if we took that same discipline, same consistency, and then we apply that in American stock market? So that's what we're basically going to talk about today. Me and my host Claude, we're going to talk about how we can use that cultural, that powerful cultural thing that we do back home, and then apply here in the American system, in the stock market, to build wealth for us and then for generation to come. So, okay, Claude, we are live, and then we're gonna go ahead and get started. Are you ready?
Absolutely, Emmanuel. I'm really excited to be here with you today, talking about something that hits so close to home for our community. The Njangi has been part of our culture for generations, and exploring how we can modernize it to build real generational wealth in America, that's powerful work. Let's do this.
Okay, so for those who don't know what Njangi means, can you explain what is Njangi?
So, Njangi, and I love that you're starting here. It's a rotating savings and credit association that's been part of West and Central African culture for centuries, especially strong in Cameroon and across the diaspora. Basically, a group of people come together, pool their money regularly, and then each member gets a lump sum payout on a rotating basis. It's built on trust, community, and mutual aid. No banks, no interest rates, just people showing up for each other month after month.
Yeah, that's actually a very good definition of it. So it's really based on trust, community, and then no bank involved, no interest rate. So why do you think, because I think it's been part of, West and Central Africa for many, many years. Why do you think that that idea survived, in the West and African community for so long time?
Great question. I think it survives because it solves a real problem that banks don't address for our communities, especially when you're new to a country, building credit, or just don't trust the system yet. The Njangi is personal. You're sitting with people you know, people who look like you, who understand your situation. There's accountability built in because you're not hiding behind a corporation, you're looking your neighbor in the eye. And honestly, it works. People actually follow through because there's social pressure, yes, but also genuine community obligation. That's powerful. That's why it's lasted this long.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So I don't know. Is like since we are in the United States, is like is the Wall Street have a specific kind of like a model? Do you think is the Wall Street have a name for this like mindset, this specific like junkie culture we have back home?
That's a sharp observation. Wall Street doesn't really have a direct equivalent. They have investment clubs and rotating credit arrangements, but nothing with the same cultural foundation and trust mechanism. The closest financial concept is what they call a rotating savings group or credit union, but those are formalized with paperwork and regulations. What makes the Njangi unique is that it's informal, it's built on honor and community bonds rather than contracts. Wall Street operates on the opposite principle: everything's documented, everything's transactional. So, honestly, our Njangi model is actually more sophisticated in some ways because it works without needing lawyers or government oversight. It's pure community economics.
Oh, really? So do you think the jungle model is sophisticated in some ways? And then because of that, why do you think the jungle works really, really well in the African community? And then like everything, do you think that jungle has some limit?
Good question. Yeah, the Njangi works incredibly well in African communities because of that cultural foundation we talked about: shared values, respect for elders, the idea that we rise together. Everyone understands the rules without needing them written down. But here's the thing: it does have real limits, especially here in America. The biggest one, it's capped by how many people you can realistically organize and how much monthly commitment people can sustain. If someone moves, loses a job, or leaves the group early, the whole system can collapse. And here's what really matters: even if everyone pays perfectly, you're just moving money around. You're not actually growing wealth. The Njangi is brilliant for access and discipline, but it's not building generational wealth on its own. That's where we need to evolve the modal.
Yes, I think that's exactly where we need to evolve the model. I mean, why do you think the money doesn't grow? Why do you think we don't build wealth with this model?
Great question. So, with the traditional Njangi, let's say five of you put in $200 a month. After a year, you've moved $12,000 around, but at the end of that cycle, everyone's back to zero, right? The money just rotates, it doesn't multiply. It's a tool for access and discipline, which is valuable, but there's no growth mechanism. Wall Street figured something out that we haven't fully embraced yet. If you take that same money and invest it in something that compounds, like the stock market, your wealth actually grows exponentially over time. The Njangi keeps us disciplined and connected, but it's missing that investment component. That's the evolution we need to make.
Yeah, I agree. That's the evolution we need to make. But why? I mean, yes, people in the Django model move money around, but someone might take money individually and go invest into the stock market, into real estate, right? It doesn't. I mean, moving money around doesn't mean that nobody in the group, doesn't invest. They can invest individually, right?
You're absolutely right, Emmanuel. That's a fair point. And honestly, some people in traditional Njangis do take their payout and invest it individually in real estate or stocks. But here's the thing, that's not a group strategy, that's individual initiative. And most people don't do it consistently because once you get your payout, life happens, right? Bills come, unexpected expenses pop up, and that investment discipline breaks. Plus, you're missing the power of collective investing. When a group invests together from day one, you're pooling resources, reducing risk, and most importantly, everyone's money is compounding simultaneously for 40 years instead of just when individuals decide to invest their turn money. That's the modern Njangi difference. We're saying keep the discipline and community of the traditional model, but add the investment component from the beginning. That's where generational wealth actually happens.
Yes, interesting. I mean, that mostly what's going on most of the time. People in the Jaggi model usually take the money to solve life problem because, like you said, life happens. Some might invest, but most of the time it's to resolve life problems. So let's shift down. Let's shift now in the modern Jaggi. So what do you really means by modern Jaggi?
Perfect transition. So the modern Njangi takes everything that makes the traditional model work, that discipline, that community trust, that commitment, and marries it with wealth building through investing. Here's the core idea. Instead of rotating payouts, your group pools money every single month and invests it collectively into something like an S&P 500 index fund. The money compounds over decades, and everyone benefits from that growth together. You keep the cultural foundation, the accountability, the togetherness, but now your money is actually working for you exponentially. That's the modern Njangi.
Okay. So, wow, that's interesting. So, yeah, let's take a practical example. Let's say, I mean, can you show us real numbers? Let's say like a group of five people get together and put $200 a month into like you mentioned an index fund together. What does that look like in 10, 20, 30, 40 years?
Okay, so let's run the numbers. Five people, $200 a month each. That's $1,000 going in every single month. You invest that into something like an S&P 500 index fund, which historically averages about 7% annual return. After 40 years, you're looking at $2.6 million. 2.6 million. That's generational wealth, Emmanuel. That's not just solving today's problem, that's setting up your kids and grandkids.
Yeah, I understand that. Can you break down how does that look like in 10 years? How does that look like in 20 years? How does that look like in 30 years and 40 years?
Absolutely. So, with five people at $200 monthly investing in that 7% return, here's the progression. After 10 years, you're sitting at around $140,000. After 20 years, that jumps to about 450,000. After 30 years, you're at over 1.2 million. And then at 40 years, you hit that 2.6 million. See how it accelerates? That's compound interest doing the heavy lifting for you in those final decades. The money you put in early just keeps multiplying.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, let's take an example, the same example. Five people, $500 a month. What does that look like in 10 years? What does that look like in 20 years? What does that look like in 30 years? And at the end, can you break down to show how much like each, you know, person in the group who have contributed and then how much is the interest that been coming from that, engine of compound interest over time?
Great question. So, five people at $500 monthly, that's $2,500 going in every month. After 10 years, you're looking at around $350,000. After 20 years, about 1.1 million. After 30 years, you hit 3 million. And at 40 years, you're at 6.5 million total. Now, here's the beautiful part. Let's break down what's yours versus what the market gave you. Those five people contributed a total of $1.2 million over 40 years. The remaining 5.3 million, that's pure compound interest and market growth. That's the engine working for you. So you put in 1.2 million and the market essentially handed you 5.3 million on top of it. That's generational wealth right there.
Okay. And then since you mentioned index fund, what about investing in individual stock? What's your opinion about it?
Good question. So index funds like the S&P 500 are really the foundation here because they're diversified, low cost, and they've historically averaged that 7% return we're talking about. Now, could you do individual stocks? Sure, but that requires expertise and timing. And honestly, most people lose money trying to beat the market. Real estate is another option, but it requires capital upfront, management, and liquidity issues. With an index fund in a modern Njangi structure, everyone can participate equally. It's hands off, and the math is proven over decades. I'm not saying never do real estate or individual stocks, but for a group strategy built on consistency and compound growth, the index fund is your best friend.
Okay, that totally makes sense, Claude.
Thanks, Emmanuel. I'm glad that's landing. The beauty of it is, you're not asking people to become stock pickers or real estate moguls. You're just asking them to commit to discipline and trust the long game. That's something our community already knows how to do.
Okay, okay. So how does like someone really, start a modern junkie like this week, this month, or this year? So how does that look like?
That's the practical question, right? So here's how you actually start a modern Njangi. First, you gather your core group, 5 to 10 people you trust completely. Then you set your terms. How much monthly? $500, 200. You agree on that together. Next, you open a joint investment account, something like a brokerage account that multiple people can manage. You automate those monthly contributions so nobody has to think about it. Then you pick your investment. S&P 500 index fund is simple and proven. And here's the key. You agree up front that nobody touches this money for at least 10 years, ideally 40. It's locked in. You might meet quarterly just to check in, celebrate the growth, and keep everyone accountable. That's it. You've built a wealth machine.
Okay, so what does that look like legally? I think legally it's called investment club. So what does that look like legally when and where to open the account?
Yeah, you're right. Legally, it's often called an investment club. Now, where to open the account depends on your setup. If you want it simple, you can use a regular brokerage like Vanguard, Fidelity, or Charles Schwab. They all allow joint accounts. Some investment clubs actually form as LLCs for tax purposes, which gives you more protection. Honestly, I'd recommend talking to a tax professional or accountant about the structure that works best for your group, because there are tax implications when money compounds. But the account itself, you can start at any major brokerage, link it to your bank, set up automatic monthly transfers, and you're rolling. The barrier to entry is low. You just need commitment and trust.
Okay, so what are the different? I mean, one of the question I have is like, what are the structure you need to use to set up, the investment club? Like I know you mentioned LLC. What about maybe if it's a partnership? And also, what are the role the group need to set from day one to make a really good, successful investment club?
Good question. So, structurally, you have a few options. You can do it as a simple partnership, super informal, just an agreement between friends. You can form an LLC, which gives you liability protection and clearer tax treatment. Or you can actually register as a formal investment club, which some states recognize. The LLC is probably the sweet spot because it protects everyone legally if something goes wrong. Now, for roles, and this is crucial, you need a treasurer who manages the account and keeps records. You need a leader or coordinator who keeps everyone accountable and calls meetings. You might want a secretary who documents decisions. And crucially, you need clear bylaws from day one. What happens if someone wants to leave early? What if someone misses payments? How do you vote on investment decisions? These conversations up front save you heartbreak later. The structure protects the group so your modern Njangi actually survives.
Yes, actually, let's talk about those three questions that you just mentioned. What do you think, the investment club or the group should do if someone want to leave early, or if someone want to join, or if someone want to, if someone miss payment? What's your recommendation? What's your recommendation about that?
Those are the hard questions, Emmanuel, but they're essential. So if someone wants to leave early, here's my take. They get their contributions back plus a proportional share of the gains up to that point. Not the full amount because the magic happens over time, but they're not penalized harshly. It incentivizes staying, but it's not cruel. If someone wants to join later, that's trickier. They can join, but they should buy in at the current value of the fund, not get a discount just for being new. Everyone's money compounds equally from their entry point. Now, missed payments. This is where discipline matters. You give grace once or twice, life happens. But if it becomes a pattern, you have a conversation. Either they catch up or they step back from the group. You can't have one person's inconsistency dragging down everyone's wealth building. The group comes first because the group's future depends on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those are the really, really good points. So I think trust is very important. Consistency is very important. If someone wants to leave early, there's need to be some clear hole in the bylaw to make sure that it doesn't, make the group sink. Yeah, I think it's very important. What do you think? I mean, what do you think if the group doesn't have like too much money to start?
That's real talk right there. So here's the thing, you don't need a lot of money to start. Even if your group of five can only commit to $100 a month instead of 200, you start there. The math still works. It just takes a bit longer to compound. $100 a month over 40 years with 7% returns still gets you to over $500,000 for the group. That's life changing. Or maybe you start with three people instead of five, less monthly power, but you're building the habit, the discipline, the trust. The modern Njangi works at any scale because it's about consistency over time, not about having a huge bankroll up front. Many of us in the diaspora started with nothing. That's our strength. We know how to build from scraps. Start where you are with what you have and let compound interest do the work.
Okay, thank you very much, Claude. Yeah, I think this is a very, very useful information that us as immigrant from Africa we can use to build wealth in this country. So, what's your if you have like one single message that the African community can understand on this concept? So, what would that be? So, if you have one message in our community about why it's important to do this, so what's your message for them?
Emmanuel, here's my message. We already have the foundation. Our ancestors built the Njangi because they understood something Wall Street is still trying to teach, that together we're stronger. We're disciplined, we show up for each other. Now we just need to evolve that wisdom. Take that same trust, that same commitment, that same community spirit, and let it compound for 40 years in the stock market. Your children and grandchildren won't have to struggle the way we did. They'll inherit generational wealth built on our values, not on luck or inheritance they didn't earn. This is how we break cycles. This is how we build America the way our parents built Africa together.
Okay, thank you very much, Claude. Anything else that you want to add? Anything else that you think we need to know when it's come to this modern jungle?
I just want to say one more thing. Start now, not next year, not when you have more money, now, because time is your greatest asset in compound interest. Five people committing today, even to a small amount, will have exponentially more wealth than 10 people starting 5 years from now. And Emmanuel, I want to honor you for bringing this conversation to our community in a way that's accessible and real. This isn't abstract Wall Street talk. This is our culture meeting our future. That's powerful.
Thank you very much, Claude. Thank you. I always try to understand how the stock market work in the United States. I always try to understand why investing club something that's popular. I've seen a lot of few where I'm based, and then I was wondering, always wondering why we don't do this in my community. I have friends from other community who do this. They've been doing it for years, 10, 15 years. And then I hope the message really touch people in our community so they can get together as they do for the traditional Njangi, and then kind of create this modern Njangi, and then use the opportunity that we have to be in this country to build generational wealth for themselves and then for their generation.
You nailed it, Emmanuel. That's exactly it. Other communities figured out how to blend their cultural practices with American wealth building tools. And we can too. We have everything we need: the discipline, the trust, the community bonds. We just needed someone like you to connect those dots and say out loud, hey, we can do this. Your friends from other communities aren't smarter or more resourceful than us. They just started. And now you're giving our community permission to do the same. That's legacy work right there.
Thank you very much, Claude. Thank you very much, as usual, for your insight, for your knowledge. And then I'll catch you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. This was incredible. Really, truly. Keep building, keep educating our community, and I can't wait to connect again. Take care.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I hope we share a little bit of information for you to have more information about this Modern Njangi, about this investing club model. So I think it's something that we all can use to generate like more wealth for us, for our kids in this country. So because I know we as as an immigrant, as an African, as Cameroonian, we have that discipline in us. We have that discipline in us to show up together in our community, to put money on the table, to help each other, to rotate among each other, so that everyone can get that power to solve whatever problem they might have. But I want us to think outside the box a little bit. I want us to raise the bar a little bit. I want us to answer the question, what's next from this cultural mindset. So like you just heard, if you use that same mindset, that same discipline, that same consistency, and then we get together a group of 5 or 10 trusted people, and then we put $100 or even $50 or $200 a month on the table, that could be $1,000 or $2,000 a month, guys. And if you put that into the market for the long term, not for the short term, not to get rich quick, but for the long term. If you put that into the market for the long term, when I say long term, I mean 10, 20, at least 20 years, 20 to 30 years, the result can be massive, really, really massive. So if you use that same consistency, if you use that same mindset, if you use that same discipline, that same trust, and then we get together and then we do this model, and then instead of taking it and solve immediate life problems, which I understand we have the obligation to do it, but let's also think for the future, for us and for our kids. And if we do that, and then we just patient, and then we just consistent, 30 years, 40 years, or 20 years the result can be very, very massive. So I wanted to put this information out there so that with the hope that it helps one person or a couple of people. And then I'm going to look into this myself. And then if you want to have more information, if you want to discuss the idea, if you think that we should do this, just reach out and then we will talk about it. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate, like I said at the beginning, all the feedback you guys giving me to improve the podcast. I hope you found the conversation very interesting. I hope you found some value out of this video. And if that's the case, please just do us a favor, share, like, subscribe, and then we'll catch you guys next time. Thank you, and God bless.